Welcome back to another episode. I'm joined today by Juletta and Ishan. They are writing music together and they just put out an album, If I Never Hit Land, on October 16th, based off of a bunch of interviews that they did with 30 women. And so we're really excited to hear about that story. Do you all want to first talk about how you all met and started making music together?
Absolutely. Well, we met in New York. I had moved there, 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago now, actually. And we met within the first year of me moving with mutual friends, kind of the classic story. And we started working together and, had very similar tastes in music. And after working together for a while, it just was kind of the perfect collaboration.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the first night that we met, Juletta told me about her grand idea to make an album based on interviews that she was going to conduct around New York, and of course it piqued my interest enough to eventually make it.
How long, when did you guys meet and when did that idea develop?
So that would have been just about 2 years ago, where I was starting to get the idea. Right when I was moving to New York, I was really inspired by the people I was meeting and I wanted to capture that. And so the idea kind of came out of that transition. And then we started making the music actually after our last EP, which came out in November of 2018. And then we started making this album probably for about the last 2 years, just slowly.
What was the process of picking the people that you want to interview? Did you select them or did you just meet people and think that they were interesting?
Yeah, my goal was to interview strangers, and so what I did with I brought a friend to do video and a friend to do audio, and we went around and would sit in New York parks. And then I would go up to different women that I saw and ask if they wanted to interview. And really my goal was just to meet as many people as possible, rather than a goal of seeking out people I thought were interesting. I just wanted to get a ton of stories and yeah.
What did any relationships come out of meeting those people? Have you kept in touch with any of them?
Yeah, somewhat for sure. Jenny, who is the main character in the story that was Solstice, our last single. We've definitely kept in touch over Instagram and things, and she's been really supportive, which is cool. And then, several of the women over the years have reached out and we've stayed in touch. Yeah, I got to share the album with all of them, and that was really special.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So is each song based off of a specific interview, or are they kind of intertwined?
Somewhat intertwined. I would say several of the songs are specifically for specific women. Mm-hmm. But throughout the process too, I really found my own story coming out of this, and as I was writing my experience meeting people, I was also reflecting on how I ended up in New York and why, and what was happening in my life at the time. And so it's very intertwined, I think, with my own personal commentary and then my reflection of the stories.
Do you have any stories that really resonated with you, that stood out, that made you feel extra something?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite story, or one of my favorite stories, was actually an interview with my videographer, because she had been with me this whole time as we were videoing strangers, and then one day she asked if she could interview it, and so that was really special already. And then she told this incredible story about meeting sidekicks, and she had spent a year doing this project where she would meet sidekicks and video them, and so basically she has this crazy database of different psychics telling her story and getting their interpretation. So it's past life regressions and hypnosis and all these different things. But what struck me the most is she so reminded me of my sister when she was talking, and it felt like a sign, because at the time my sister was really struggling with mental illness, and who watched Kaylee, that was the videographer's name, just, you know, really embody her spirit was like almost out of body for me. So that was a really, really special experience from that summer.
Yeah, that's cool when you meet people who remind you of someone else. It's like a little bit of home, especially when you just moved to New York.
Yeah, exactly. And then the track Wash, which is the 8th track on the album, is about Kaylee and that experience meeting her.
Nice.
And then the actual audio of her interview also made it on the album. In the 3rd track, you can actually hear Kaylee explain a little bit about her psychic endeavors.
And then I know this album is a little bit different than your first EP that you worked on together in terms of like genre style. How did that come about? Like, did the story just kind of feel like it deserved a different type of music, or did you want to work on something a little different together?
You know, I think when we first started, we kind of had this conception that we wanted to, I think, make like music that hit closer to like organic feeling music. So we focused on like live feeling music, like a lot of guitars, a lot of piano and things like that. And then that's what we were focusing on with like the project that we were working under the Juletta name. And then I was also at the same time working on like my own EP under like my own name, Ishan. And that was a completely different sound. It was like heavily sampled of like old Indian music and like a lot of electronic influence and house influence, which was music that I was interested in making as well. And then at a certain point, I think both of us kind of, I don't know if it happened so consciously or unconsciously or like probably a little bit of both, but as we like ended that first EP that we worked on together and started making songs for what we knew would be this project, I also kind of wanted to explore what it would be like to kind of cross-pollinate and bring organic elements and electronic elements in balance with each other or juxtaposed with each other. So I think sonically, I was kind of playing with one of the ideas I was playing with was like some sort of balance between organic elements and electronic elements to create something that existed in separate parts before for us, but we hadn't tried to fully mesh them together.
So you're kind of blending both of your styles into one. Okay. Yeah, cool. When did both of you just start doing music in general?
Ooh. So I grew up in the East Bay of California, San Francisco, and I have a very musical extended family. And so in the summers, we always had these family reunions where we'd all stay at the beach for the final 2 weeks. And we had these huge music nights with guitars and singing, and so from there I always had an interest in music, and it just felt so natural to pick up playing piano, and from there I just started songwriting as well. So it's always kind of just been ingrained in my lifestyle for me.
Yeah.
And I'm totally the opposite. That was not what happened for me. When I was a kid, I was like really into magic, and then eventually Rubik's cubes, and that's like that was my lifestyle as a kid. And tennis, and then a bunch of like Gushers and fruit roll-ups. That was my childhood. But yeah, I loved music, or actually that isn't even necessarily true. I decided that I wanted to become more educated in like the world of movies and music when I was like in high school. So I decided to like watch a bunch of movies and then also listen to a bunch of music while I was doing homework. And at the same time, I think my friends were probably going through some like similar things, because eventually we all ended up really loving music and talking about it in our free time, and like getting together on the weekends and discussing like what was going on in hip hop at the time, and also like what was going on like way before our time, and just discussing music because it was interesting to us. And then eventually, after high school, my friend group and I decided to make a mixtape, as any, great friend group in high school would do.
Oh yeah.
We made it, and in that I rapped a little bit, but I was mostly like of the producer role.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the worst mixtape known to man, and I will never actually tell anybody the name of the mixtape because it's still on the internet, and I don't want it to like follow me around because it's so bad. But the experience itself was absolutely the best thing that I had ever done up to that point. And I think looking back, like it kind of like started a bit of almost like an addiction. Like I just had to produce no matter what. And then I went to college, and I didn't pursue music in college or anything, but I just like kept on pursuing it and kept on pursuing it, first as a hobby, and then it suddenly came this like middle ground of like, oh, maybe I can do this more than just a hobby. And then after college, I just decided to pursue it fully.
Nice. Yeah, what was that pull that kept like drawing you back?
You know, I think it was one of the only things I would do and spend hours on, and like so much energy and time, and then walk away more energized, because like the things I was doing in school, it didn't feel like that. Very few things in my life felt like that. And the one thing that really kept on pulling me in was music, and the one thing that kept on almost giving more than I bargained for was music. Both, I like, again, I mean that I think spiritually, but also like I was making friends out of it. I would like, I felt most alive when I was doing music. So I think there was a point where I think it was a transitional point where I was like, I think with my life, I'd rather pursue the thing that makes me feel most alive rather than anything else.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of creative people, at least that I've talked to or been around, and it's creating the thing that makes them feel something.
Yeah.
Just so different than doing any kind of other job you could do.
Yeah, it's so different. It's so different.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about that, Gilletta? Do you have a similar feeling with music?
I definitely do. I feel like I'm my most honest self in writing, and I feel like, you know, that's always what I'm working towards, is getting to a place where I feel completely comfortable with myself and completely, you know, like naked and honest in the world and how I'm presenting myself. And I think the closest I get to that is when I'm songwriting, and there's, you know, those moments of like magic, it feels, when everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I feel like I'm most tapped into like a divine self. I know it sounds kind of preachy, but I do feel that way. Like, you know, I'm connected to something bigger. So it's certainly very spiritual in my life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because also music, I think, to people who enjoy it and who create it, is almost like a therapy kind of a thing too. So it comes with that like feeling of spirituality and like coziness. And
yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Do you do music? You sound like you do in some things.
I don't, but I strongly appreciate music. I'm around music a lot, so it's yeah. And I feel a lot of things when I experience other people playing music.
Too. Sometimes I feel like, you know, I speak to so many other, you know, creatives and artists, and you know, it's almost like I wonder if it's just us who are like, you know, getting high off our own supply kind of.
Yeah.
So it's like to hear that, you know, or it's like reassuring to hear too that like it's connecting to people that maybe don't do music, but experience it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, as I'm a creative in a different way, like I do photography, and similarly I feel kind of this out of body experience whenever I'm creating art. And it's, yeah, I understand in a sense where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
So after doing this project with the interviews, did that like change your view on people that lived in New York or people in general, or did it give you any kind of like information you didn't have before?
Oh, interesting. Absolutely. Like, it probably gave me the most information about myself. after, as I was understanding my role. And I think really like that's why I went out to do it too, is to like place myself amongst other people and understand myself through the experiences of other people, through the advice given by other people. And so I feel like I came out with an appreciation for my family that I hadn't had before, and a more understanding of like lineage and roots of my like identity, of like where I came from and how I am the way I am. And so I think that was huge in this project. As well as, my mind was expanded about like the internal lives of people. I think we passed by so many people and you just see the exterior, you don't see what happens underneath. And so, you can imagine what people might go through, but then sitting down and hearing, a story from a woman who had lost her mother, brother, and her father, like, and is now an orphan, like, you don't see that on somebody's face. So it's crazy to like pass somebody now and be like, wow, I wonder what their story is or where they came from.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that everybody you see has something just completely almost inexplicable happen to them, or like or they possess something completely inexplicable. They've gone through tragedy, or someone they know has gone through tragedy which has affected them.
Yeah.
But you'll hardly ever have a space to talk about that with most people that you meet.
Yeah, totally. For the most part, we do perform this like exterior self, and you keep it professional for the most part in your life. So, especially with strangers, like getting the opportunity to not be professional and not wear the exterior was super special to take part of. Yeah. And like on top of hearing about the crazy things that happened to people, it was also amazing hearing about like the tiny moments that mattered so much. Like, I can't tell you how many people talked about their dogs, which was so cool. Like, everybody had an animal story that like just lit up for them, and that was really cool. Or like their childhood house. It was like these really little moments in time too, which I really loved hearing about.
Yeah, going back to like how we usually don't connect this deeply with other people around us, I feel like that's what the world is missing these days. And we like, you walk by all these people and everyone has their own story, and you just don't know it until you ask them. And we're kind of programmed to keep to ourselves and like not like tell too much information, not ask too much information. And so it's kind of cool to break that mold a little bit.
Exactly. And for me, like, I felt like I still spend so much time like only sharing a select piece of me. It's this like very finely crafted exterior, and it's rarely just like the messy conversation and confusing thoughts and emotions. And so I'm like tired of that. I'm tired of having this little blip, and I want to, it's part of the reason I made an album.
Yeah, I think these women will be really appreciative of having their stories told, and that's going to be cool for them to hear and for other people to hear too.
I hope so. Yeah.
Have you guys been staying busy at all during like quarantine and like doing any music, or just working on the release of this album?
It's been a bit of both. Two of the songs that actually made that album, which is Gut Feeling and Spiral, they were recorded like within the first week of quarantine. So like we decided to come visit my parents' house, and then like it just so happened to completely coincide with quarantine hitting, so we ended up staying for a while. And that first week, we made two songs that actually made the album, and then after that we finalized and mixed and mastered. And then for a while I think we were focusing a lot on release. Also, we were like apart, so it wasn't necessarily easy to make music together.
Yeah.
But then I think within this past month we've like been able to be in the same place again, so we've been making a lot more music than we had months previous.
Yeah.
So probably a little bit of both is what we've been up to.
Yeah.
Can we get a little sneak peek of what you're working on this month? Like, what kind of stuff has been inspiring you to start creating again?
Oh yeah.
That's what inspired
Fleetwood
me.
Mac.
Yeah.
Even so much Fleetwood Mac. Like in particular, Gypsy by Stevie Nicks, or it's Fleetwood Mac, but
Yes.
it's Nicks written. I just learned like the story behind that song, and it's about her friend that had passed away. And I didn't realize the depth of it, and it's kind of sent me and Ishan like kind of down a rabbit hole of Fleetwood Mac. So we've definitely been making music inspired by them, I would say.
I've been, yeah, Fleetwood Mac for sure. I think, like, because we don't have an album to be making and focusing on, because like when we were making the album, we knew we were going to make an album and release it. Now, like, we don't have anything tying us down necessarily, so I've kind of been just like completely following my curiosity wherever it goes. So like that's led me in like direction of Prince and like maybe like a lot like funk stuff. That's led me in the direction of like later Kanye and like hip hop. That's led me, and Fleetwood Mac, which like I don't see what any of the connection is between that. But somehow I think still the music that we're making is like somehow a mix of all of those things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because the sound you're saying, like the Prince, the Kanye stuff, that's kind of like your producing sound, but then the Fleetwood Mac side is the more storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
He got an organ too. You can see.
Yeah,
that
I got an organ in quarantine.
Off Craigslist.
Yeah, it was free. So
wow.
Always look at
Fine.
Craigslist.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. It's also complete crap, so you should watch out.
It could be a little sketchy, but I mean, if you find stuff like that, that's pretty good.
Exactly.
You just have to finesse Craigslist.
What are you doing differently now during this release than you would have if we were able to like be out in the world?
Definitely performing less. I love performing. It's one of the really special things about music, because getting to like actively share the experience with people is awesome, and like hear the stories in return to the stories I'm telling is just such a cool thing. So I miss that a ton. But we're starting to play around with like live streaming and finding new ways to share the music. So I guess that's probably the biggest difference, is the lack of performing.
Yeah, lack of performing, and then I think just in general in the music industry, there's been an increase, like an obvious increase of the importance of your digital presence, because I mean there's no in-person presence anymore. So I think that's something that we've had to focus on too. That would be, I think, it wouldn't be absent in previous releases or if this was like an open world, but I think it's definitely emphasized more for everybody, almost like everybody in the world basically, because that's the way to connect now.
Yeah, that's where everyone's living these days.
Yeah. Everybody's staring at a computer like all day now, you know?
7. We're never off Zoom, we're always on Zoom.
Truly,
what do you miss about being able to perform this stuff live? Was like the first feeling of like having this album out and getting to share it with the people in the world.
I really miss playing new renditions of the songs. For a while I was performing live with a band, and so that was cool because they would always interpret the music in a way that I hadn't thought of before. So it's cool seeing like the different pieces, the different little special desserts that they would put into the songs. So I loved that. So I want to hear like the renditions that they come up with, and then also playing live just has like crazy adrenaline and energy. So I miss that. Like getting to take part in just like everybody being just really hyped up, and it's a shared space as well. You can't really do that, by yourself in your room in the same way.
Definitely not.
Dancing, like
that's
I
true.
feel like even though like you can dance like
he's
in your
a
house,
DJ too, so he's very much
like you just can't dance nearly like as I mean you can, but it's just not the same, like you were saying, if you to dance alone. And dancing alone is awesome and fun, and dancing with your loved ones is awesome and fun, but like communally being in like a warm space, and then I mean like like not temperature wise, but like in a
Sweaty
warm,
space.
welcoming space. Yeah, sweaty space.
No,
In a welcoming space and just dancing. Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't done that in so long. I
The-
miss that.
Yeah, the problem with like live streaming or like taking parts in live spaces that I've found too is you're performing while looking at yourself. And if you dance and look at yourself, or you sing it and look at yourself, it's like way more of a critical experience than it is like a, just like cathartic experience. So like I'll be performing and just like only watching myself, and I'll be like, oh shoot, I gotta fix my hair. So I miss like not having that sense of what do I look like right now?
Yeah, being able to be more free and just
Yeah.
live in the moment. Yeah.
Like I don't want to see that until later, till I watch the video back and I'm like, oh gosh. In the moment it's awesome. So
Yeah, that's dancing. I miss dancing too. And it is like there's a different feeling of dancing by yourself. Like that's like really great, but also like just experiencing music with other people.
Yeah,
It's
and
very special.
the other thing I like when you said music, another thing clicked in my head is that like I like going and seeing new and weird, like new music to me and weird music, which
Yeah.
I was able to do so much more live.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you just find some weird band that you didn't know existed, or like some DJ plays some crazy song that you've never heard, And you can do these things virtually, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same. So I think that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone who's watching goes out and listens to the new album.
We do.
It's
Thank you so much.
full of amazing stories, and it was made with a lot of love, seemingly. So
Oh, we really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you so
reaching
much,
out.
Marissa.
Yeah.
yeah, of course. All right.